Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the PDPreps podcast. I am making my triumphant return. I've conquered my illness. We're back. It is December 19th, about noon. I guess Morris Keenan and Doherty, Jordan Lattimore chopping it up. Um, we're still reveling in the St. Vincent state title game. Parade was on Sunday. Yesterday was actually we saw that it was declared. It was the St. Vincent Mustangs Day in Petaluma. So that was definitely very cool. But yeah, we're gonna be on this last pod, final kind of wrap up stuff about the football season. Kind of looking ahead to next year, looking at the new Redwood Empire football realignment, that whole fun conference that's going to be happening starting next season. And then yeah, at the end, we're going to be kind of making our full transition over here into basketball talk and stuff. So yeah, boys, thanks for holding it down for me last week. Yeah, I listened in. I came back. I have to defend myself. I heard some smack talking over there from you guys. So we're back. But I think that's a good place to start, is we are starting with our final football rankings of the year. These were released end of last week. Probably our most hotly debated rankings, I'd say, of the season. Where do we put St. Vincent was the big question. Putting them over Casa, Ukiah, all this different stuff. But again, if you read our stuff, you know what happened. So our final rankings of the year, I guess we'll start at the top. Windsor number one. Finished out the year NCS Division II runners up, second straight year NBL Oak champions, all that good stuff. Newman number two, Rancho Cotati number three, jumping up from number four. Coming in at number four is our St. Vincent Mustangs. They jumped two spots. They finished the regular season at number six. They jumped Casa and Ukiah. Casa at number five, Ukiah at number six, and then Vintage at number seven to round out the rankings. And then bubble teams would go American Canyon, Annalee, and Maria Correa. So, boys, hotly debated here. Hotly debated. Of course, I had to put on my hater hat. I to try, and I had to come to the defense of Ukiah and Casa Grande here. Ukiah had the head-to-head win over Ukiah. Ukiah lost to Casa Grande. I've already spelled this out with you guys, but I did think at the end of the day, you guys were right. St. Vincent does deserve to be rewarded for its league, for its state championship. Again, incredible run for the Mustangs, beating some bigger schools, but yeah, you guys definitely though we're going to bat for the Mustangs, and I respect it. So
Well, someone had to. If it wasn't going to be you
Yeah,
guys, who was it going to
exactly.
be? Who
Here
was it
we
going
go.
to be? Come on.
Gee, Luis, he picks Palo Alto one week and then gets off the haterade the next week for the state championship game, and now he's back on the haterade, Jordan. I don't know
I
what's going
know.
on
It's
here.
like we
I
got to
all right.
got to.
All credit to St. Vincent. I mean, again, absolutely amazing what they did. I mean, winning 6A, division or winning the 6AA state championship. From kind of where they were after that Ukiah loss. I mean, I remember talking with Trent Herzog like in his office, and he was like, I'd never seen the guy so down and dejected in his life. And from what they had done to kind of turn that around, and then rattle off that big winning streak, and again, like we've said the entire time, beating teams that are 10 times their size, maybe even more than that. In the case of Palo Alto, yeah. I mean, again, for as much of a hater as I am, just truly an incredible run for St. Vincent, and I will give them all the credit too. But I will say I'll get to my points about Casa and Ukiah in a second, but yeah, I mean, Keenan, you went to the parade though, right? On Sunday.
Yeah, I literally got out of my car and the parade started 10 minutes early because right as I got out of my car, it started dumping, just absolutely dumping. And everyone was, pretty much all the players and coaches and cheerleaders were on these open like tow trucks with bales of hay. So they had no cover whatsoever. Trent was just sitting there. He got his own little truck and everything, holding up the trophy and everything like that. But he got dumped. It was pretty pretty funny sight to see. But yeah, no, yeah, it was a nice little showing for St. Vincent. I'm pretty sure from where I was at there was a lot of people because they started there at Walnut Park, went down Kentucky Street, came back around on Petaluma Boulevard South, and then back to Walnut Park. So it wasn't that long by any stretch of the imagination. But anyways, yeah, like you were saying, it's we got to reward St. Vincent. Absolutely. And I think that was my main point here. And I think Jordan kind of shares that sentiment a little bit. Because last week was a St. Vincent heavy pod on our end. But at the end of the day, I do think, I do think with St. Vincent, like towards the end there, like you can only move up so far up the rankings. Like, got to be a little realistic there. This is the debate that Gus and I have been having for the past 2 years. Like, this is why we wish we'd see St. Vincent play Rancho, or see St. Vincent play Windsor, or see St. Vincent
or
play
even
Cardinal.
Casa, like, I mean,
or even
like,
Casa. Yeah, exactly. Or any of the Petaluma schools. You know what I'm saying? So. It's a tricky situation for sure, but the second state champions in Sonoma County history. So I think that pretty much, that pretty much trumps a lot of different aspects, that we looked at during the season, such as head to head and everything like that. But a state champion is a state champion, no matter what it's in. So I think that for me, that's the clear and obvious deciding factor. Jordan, if you want to weigh in, you can.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, you want to see them play more of the other Petaluma schools, but you got to give credit where it's due. I mean, a state champion is a state champion, regardless. I mean, they have a freaking day named after what they did, man.
Yeah, cool.
We got to show them some love. You know what I mean? We got to drag out some type of support out of Gus, man. Gus,
oh my God,
take the hater hat off, man. Take the hater hat off. It's okay. You can leave it off. You don't gotta keep.
I support St. Vincent. I support St. Vincent plenty, but I am also trying to keep it realistic, like Kidden said, because it is the question of, like, I mean, again, like we've talked about, or like Kidden just mentioned too. It's like we want to, like the last couple of years. I mean, last year I think especially. I think 2 years ago when St. Vincent was kind of first on their like big rise, and they had like one of their first big seasons. It was like, this is a fun story, like, cool small school team, doing some really awesome stuff. Made it to the NCS championship game. Won the NCS championship, made it to a NorCal, regional game. Their first year, I think, their first full year in the NBL, they win the league too, like, really awesome story. The second year, when they, last year, when they had Kai Hall, Jared Passarge, and they had this awesome senior class, and we're thinking, holy cow, like, this team is like a juggernaut. They were undefeated going all the way, into the NCS championship game, and we're thinking, like, man, like, this team, I mean, I think Keenan and I both really thought that was a state championship caliber level team for sure. And they just, had some bad luck there in the NCS championship game. But, that year, I think, was the first year that we're like, man, like, could St. Vincent really kind of stack up against the big guys? And then I think this year, I think that question is even more of like something that we want to see. And especially what they did to the teams in NCS Division 6. I mean, they won by an average of like 35 points. Like, which I think shows you that they're probably better than a Division 6 team. They probably should be. I mean, like, I think they probably would have given Miramonte, a good run in Division 5. I don't know if Division 4 might be a bit of a stretch with like the San Marins and the Alcalanes and stuff, but St. Vincent clearly shows that they can, for a small school and a small program, they punch way above their weight class. So absolutely hats off, respect to them for sure for that.
We still give them credit. We still can acknowledge,
we do,
what they're capable of. But even if you look at the teams that are ranked above them, we give them more credit because they play each other. Because you know what I mean. So we can't flip the standards when it comes to teams that obviously, you look at the strength of the schedule. It is what it is. You know what I mean. So I totally get what you're saying.
Well, and the hard part about St. Vincent too is like a lot of the big schools won't schedule them. Just because there's nothing in it for the big schools, like there's no winning in that situation, right?
It's all risk.
There's no winning in that situation for the big schools. So that's part of why it's hard to kind of gauge where St. Vincent is with the rest of them because they play who they play, and that's and they beat who they play too, which is great. So I mean, again, hater aside, all respect to St. Vincent for what they did this year. I mean, again, I know it was kind of a fun thing, but like, no, I mean, again, what St. Vincent has done the last 3 seasons to win 30, whatever, they've won what, 37 games, I want to say, the last 3 years or something like that. Yeah. I mean, like a state championship game or state championship, 2 NCS championships, a trip to three straight NCS, title game appearances for a school to do this kind of on this, like in this little short time span from, I mean, 4 years ago, they were playing as an independent program. I mean, the rise of a small
Dang.
program like that is nuts. So,
Right.
yeah. I mean, again, even for a hater like myself, I can take off the hater glasses and say and really recognize what an awesome accomplishment this is for St. Vincent.
No, absolutely, and I totally agree with you there. I think it's pretty spectacular. You know, just going down. You know, obviously I was in Pasadena for it, and just going down and really, you know, witnessing it. You know, it just meant so much to them, so much to the St. Vincent community. They just were so happy, and there was a lot of people that actually came down
Yeah.
from St. Vincent to attend the to attend to the game. So it was pretty spectacular,
Mhm.
to say the least. But going yeah, I mean, but as for the rest of the rankings, you know, Ukiah first league title since when? 19 something like that.
85 or something like that. Yeah.
85, so that's big for them. Um so yeah, it's I mean it's spectacular, and St. Vincent, give credit where credit's due, like Jordan said.
Mhm. Yeah, Keenan, I see that you put some of our season records here for our picks. So I know that
Absolutely. I
you guys
mentioned it
talked a
last
bit
week, Jordan, but I forgot to do the math, so I'm doing it right now.
All right.
about that last week. I saw on the pod, but Keenan got me. He did. I think it was 1 or 2 games that it was the difference by. I think he beat
Two.
me after the it was the of course. You know, this being all karma, but I think it was me picking Palo Alto and you picking St. Vincent. Actually, I think that decided it. So, all karma coming back there. Yeah, Keenan, you know, again, our second year doing this, I won the first year. Keenan comes back and takes the second year. Jordan, it's your time next year, apparently, man. So
Well, Jordan, we talked about this last week, but Gus, you weren't here for this. But Jordan, what a comeback
I
by
listened,
Jordan!
I finished above 500. Like,
Yeah.
What a comeback!
After that start, that's very impressive.
yeah, I know. I had to, get my, teeth cut a little bit, get kind of, test some takes out, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and hey, man, we're above 500, baby.
Watch
Yeah,
out, watch out. He's
watch
coming
out,
back. He's
man. I
coming
got
back next
momentum.
year with a vengeance, man.
Yes, sir.
I know. Probably should have came out with a trophy or something. We should have thought of that
Oh
before.
yeah,
Maybe next year. Maybe
or
next year
metal.
we'll come out with like a trophy or something like that.
Yeah, like a chain or
Um,
something.
yeah, exactly. Um, So Gus, yeah, so obviously we just kind of talked about our rankings and stuff like that, and we just talked about our final records here. But something you mentioned, and we want to get off our chest, obviously, is the fact that this is the this was last year for both NVL and VVAL, at least for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
The Marin, Napa, and Sonoma County schools all agreed to a conference realignment for next year, so they'll all be sort of merging. A lot of the divisions will be looking very similar to
Pretty
what we
similar,
saw,
yeah.
very similar to what we saw this year. But in terms of the MDL VVAL, Gus, I'll let you take this one, because it seems like as we look over the past couple of years, you know, back 2018, I think it was the inception. You know, there's been quite a bit of parity in each of the leagues or divisions or whatever you want to call them. Uh, Maybe VVAL has the least of the parity. You know, Vintage has always been the cream of the crop there, but so some parity otherwise nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it'd be kind of fun now that with football season wrapped up and this being the last year of the NBL, or this current structure of the NBL and the VVAL, for football at least, it's, you know, kind of, you know, would be kind of cool to look back and see how these two leagues kind of played out. And I know Jordan wrote about this, was it last month or something like that, about, you talked to a bunch of the VVAL coaches of like, you know, what did you think about what the VVAL was like? Because I know for like American Canyon or for like Vintage and Napa, like they used to be, I believe, in the Sac Joaquin section, so they had to come over, and it was like, I mean, it made a lot of sense to have this kind of like, you know, Southern Sonoma County partial, you know, half, you know, slash Napa league, with these kind of schools in close proximity, but it was just, you know, I know what had happened. It was a huge move. I mean, you know, like the MBL structure used to be, you know, there was the MBL and there was the SCL, the Sonoma County League, and that was like, you know, Annalee and Healdsburg and Windsor and Piner, and anyway. So you know, obviously, you know, there's been a lot of realignment and restructuring, you know, over the years, but this was I'd say one of the more, you know, significant ones in the last, you know, couple decades. But it's just kind of interesting to kind of look back and see, you know, how it all played out. I mean, you know, just looking at the Oak. I will say, I mean, you know, Keenan, you know, you mentioned parity too in these leagues, and I think that well, maybe I think the Oak probably provided quite a bit of parity at the top. I think the Redwood was a bit more evenly split with parity.
Sure.
Like every team, every year it seemed like a new team was like in the mix to win it. And then the VVAL maybe didn't have the most, but I'd say VVAL might have provided some of the most exciting races though. I mean, you look at especially the
Sure.
last 3 years, it seemed like every single year. Uh, like every year, like the title came down to like the last week of the regular season or something like that. So I mean, I think they all provided their parity in their own ways, I'd say. But I mean, just taking a look at the NBL Oak first. I mean, Windsor, won the last two, league titles. Last year, they went undefeated. Year before that, the one loss. The year before that, Rancho Cotati won. That was 2021. That was a super exciting year too. Came down to again, tiebreaker scenarios. Last game of the regular season. That was a really exciting league race. And then Newman was kind of was the undefeated top dog in 18 and 19 in the first 2 years of it. So but then looking at the Redwood, you had 4 different league champions in five full seasons, which is pretty sweet to see, honestly. I mean, this is like when you're a commissioner of a league trying to reform leagues and make races exciting. This is exactly what you want to see. Obviously, this last year, Ukiah, winning league for the first time in 40 years. The 2 years before St. Vincent, 2021, St. Vincent, there was a 3-way tie between St. Vincent, Santa Rosa, Montgomery. I mean, that was exciting. Year before that, Santa Rosa won it. Year before that, Montgomery won it. So it's like, that's a pretty exciting, a pretty exciting slate of winners, I'd say, for quote unquote the lower division of the NBL. I mean, again, every league race, it was exciting and tight. And I'd say, I mean, I'd probably say last year with St. Vincent, going undefeated was probably like the most quote unquote lopsided it ever was. And even then there were some close games in that race. So and then VVAL, I mean, Jordan, this is your first year out there, but first 3 years, that was Vintage's, Vintage owned it. I think they were like something like 18-0, I want to say, in their first like 3 full seasons, in the VVAL. No one could really touch them. And then in the last 3 years, we saw Casa beat them, we saw Petaluma beat them, we saw American Canyon beat them. So it was it was cool to see, I guess, other teams kind of try to rise to that level that Vintage kind of set as the caliber. So I don't know. I'd say kind of taking a 30,000 look at all of this. I'd say, I mean, most programs here, I'd say, kind of emerged from this realignment cycle in better places than they were, when things started, I'd say. I mean, and that's even with a COVID year mixed in there, which, again, threw everything into whack and stuff. But St. Vincent, obviously, up on the rise. Windsor has kind of emerged as a new power. Newman is still legit. Rancho, always competitive. I mean, even Montgomery can compete with with some of these top dogs, kind of night in and night out. And then VVAL too. It's like everyone has kind of had to elevate their game to catch what Vintage is doing. So I don't know. Overall, I'd say it was really fun to kind of watch, the last, 6 years or 5 years of this cycle. But I do think that what's coming up next is going to be really special. Just, I mean, with that top division, with all the great teams, in that division, and then, hopefully, we can see some of the teams that are struggling a bit more, able to elevate themselves, kind of out of that, out of those spots and kind of, get some flow back into their programs. But I don't know, guys, like, I know you guys haven't been around as long as I have been, as far as the NBL, but you guys, have a pretty good idea about things at this point. But, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts about kind of, the last years here of the NBL and the VVAL?
Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, I think you hit it right on the head about these programs being in better places than they were before. And in terms of where they're going, I think they're in really good spots. And I think that's just because, leagues like the VVAL, for example, you have a really diversified set of the divisions within the league. And when you do that, when you do that with really high caliber, high division schools that have performed well in the past and have, like a Vintage, right, that's earned this reputation of being the top dog, it makes everyone around them feel like they got to go chase that standard and try to be as good as that, even though they know, like, hey, look, us playing up against the hot, like Sonoma Valley, for example, right? They're a D5 school. They brought it to Vintage this year. You know what I mean? When they played at Vintage, and I think the reason why is because that's just the standard now. You know what I mean? When you're playing against in a league with the best, you try to become the best, and I think that's a really good point you made. But I also think that dynamic also kind of speaks to why these kinds of leagues kind of fell apart the way they fell apart, because when I spoke to Max Pond, for example, about that in that piece that I wrote last month, he was saying like that was part of the struggle, was even though they appreciate the opportunity to go play against big high division caliber schools, it was kind of hard sometimes to, because again the playoff structure works, you have to be 500 in your own division, and it's hard sometimes to really rally the troops when they're taking all these L's to all these other schools that are higher division and are expected to beat them, and then they got to go play against other schools within their division. So it's just hard sometimes when the kids, they're gonna always play their butts off and play their hardest, but when they're playing against teams that are just so stacked against them, it's hard to kind of build that continuity and build that confidence for the long haul of the season. So there's pros and cons to this kind of structure in leagues. Have how many D1 schools, how many D2 schools, how many D5 schools, how many D4 schools? It's it's kind of an open-ended question. But I think what you kind of hit on in terms of how the way the leagues were currently structured and how that shifted the momentum for them as we've kind of figured out this realignment thing, it's really good. I think, like, again, for a team like Sonoma Valley, they didn't make the playoffs this year, but they played really good teams, really, really tight. They had some bad losses, they had some good losses, but they're in a much better place than they would have been if they had just been, playing only D5 schools the entire year. You know what I mean? They got to really get battle tested and see what they're capable of, which is what you really want out of any situation, whether you have a winning season or a losing season. So, overall, I think even though these leagues are both kind of disbanding, and you sometimes might think like, oh, maybe it would be cool to kind of keep them around still. I think it's a really healthy breakup. I think it's a good thing that it's situationally, I think it's really good for a lot of these programs that they're going to kind of find their own lanes now. They've been through the heat, they've been through all this stuff, and now they're going to kind of spread their wings and see what they're kind of capable of in different ventures. So I kind of like the situation.
Yeah, well, and just going off that real quick, I mean, like, I think Sonoma Valley is an interesting kind of point because, like, I mean, I think that them and Justin, I'd say, were two kind of outliers, I'd say, in the VVAL as far as school size. I mean, all the other schools are, have I mean, Vintage has almost 2,000 kids. I mean, Napa has almost 2,000 kids. Mary Camden has over like 1,500 kids. Like, Casa is close to 2,000. Like, so I mean, again, it's like, and then you're talking about is Sonoma Valley is what, like under 1,000, and then Justin has like under 500 or something like that. So it's like these are smaller programs playing the big dog. So, and I do think it is a good point as well, where it's like, hey, like we have to play these behemoths of programs, and it's like, it's just and you have to, because that's who you're playing in league. So, and then you have to do stuff with schedules to make sure that you are playoff eligible and play D5 teams early on, and maybe schedule some wins early on, or like like, so it definitely changes how you have to approach the season. But I think Sonoma, I know that they're graduating like quite a few of their studs, but looking at kind of the new realignment cycle next year, I think they're going to be in like, I think the bottom tier, but I think that they have a very good chance to probably win that league, I'd say, just right off the bat. I mean, just with how competitive, with how competitive and having played all these VVAL teams the last 5 years, it's gonna hard.
Imagine if they didn't play out all these VVAL. I mean, I still look. Max Pond is a great coach, no matter what league you put him in. But like, it's just I think it only helps if they played in a league like VVAL. You know what I mean?
100%. Keenan, sorry, over to you though. If you had any thoughts about this.
No. I totally agree with what Jordan's saying here. I think I really think the variety in divisions in each of the leagues was a huge selling point, and I do think. And to Jordan's credit, I do think that this was the right amount of years for this to go through. I think What did it used to be? The Gus, it was the SCL, the Sonoma County
This
League, and
SCL and the NBL, yeah, and
yeah,
it was a similar kind of structure where the SCL was, I guess, quote unquote, the like lower division, but there was still some like, I mean, you know, like when I was in high school, like in 2014 is when I graduated. Like, in the early years of the SCL, we still had like Casa Grande was like, one of the best teams
right.
around. Annalee had some of the best boys basketball teams in the area, and they were in the SCL. So like, it wasn't necessarily like a higher and lower, but it did always seem like, when teams were really good in the SCL, then they would jump up to the NBL and such. And the NBL has been around for decades. So that's kind of, the old league around here. But
The whole league.
yeah, but
The
no,
grandfather.
I did think that it was. I mean, again, I think adding St. Vincent, I think, was also a big kind of question mark. With with the NBL, because like, I think before this, this iteration of St. Vincent, they really haven't been super competitive in a lot of sports.
Yeah.
And they used to be playing in the NCL, NCL one, NCL two. So like they've kind of jumped around leagues and stuff before, but the fact that they've kind of so positively impacted, what the NBL has been in the product, I mean, I think it's a huge testament again to St. Vincent. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those cool kind of success stories that you don't often see of a small school kind of jumping into a bigger league and having success right away too. So
100%. 100%.
exactly. So, but yeah, Keenan, any last thoughts on this, and then we'll talk about the next year's super leagues and stuff.
No. I was just about to say let's head into the super leagues. The Redwood Empire Conference is what it's going to be called. There are four divisions: the Adobe, Valley, Bay, and Mountain. Still, I'm not too sure as to which league is which, or which league is going to be named which, but we know who's in
I
which
think
league.
it is. I think that is how it goes based on
Okay,
some of the
okay.
reporting. Yeah.
So we'll start with League One, which I believe is Adobe here. It's all the heavy hitters. You got Cardinal Newman, Marin Catholic, Rancho San Marin, Vintage, and Windsor. So all the heavy hitters from the VVAL, from the MCAL, and from the NBL Oak. League Two, which is I believe is dubbed the Valley League, is pretty much the VVAL plus
Yeah.
Petaluma and Tamalpais. So you got American Canyon, Casa Grande,
Or Redwood and
Justin.
Tam. Redwood and Tam.
Oh, Redwood and Tam, excuse
Yeah.
me. American Canyon, Casa Grande, Justin Siena, Petaluma, Redwood, Tamalpais, and Napa. League 3, which I believe is called the Bay, you have Annalee, Maria Carrillo, Montgomery, St. Vincent, Santa Rosa, and Ukiah. So basically the NBL Redwood, including Santa Rosa and Annalee. So might as well have been what the Redwood should have been this year. League 4, which is I believe the Mountain. You got Archie Williams, Healdsburg, Novato, Piner, San Rafael, Sonoma Valley, Terra Linda. Gus, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but this could be League 4 could be a very competitive league.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But let's start at the top here, boys. Let's start with league number 1. Adobe, you got Newman, Marin Catholic, Rancho, San Marin, Vintage, Windsor. Wow. That is a stacked group if I've ever seen one.
Every week is going to be appointment watching in that league. It's going to be pretty incredible to see. Yeah, and just for anyone who's like, what the hell are you guys talking about here? The 2 years last year, 2 years ago, the MCAL, the VVAL, and the NBL all voted to basically merge football conference, and this is for football only. This is for no other sports. It's just for football. So it's just a football only realignments. Basically what the leagues have done is they've taken all, I forget how many teams exactly there are, but they've taken all the teams from those three leagues, and then split them up, basically saying, all right, we're gonna have a top league with all the top teams, and then rank them, so forth and so on. So kind of the I guess the kind of point of this, obviously, aside from just, getting some new looks and some new leagues and some new excitement and stuff, a big part of this too is about program building. So we look at that at that bottom tier league, and this is a lot of teams that haven't had winning records in the last couple years, or in the last, number of years, struggling programs that, are hurting on numbers or hurting on turnout. And this will certainly be a way that, I think league commissioners hope that this, playing teams that are more equal to, will we'll create some more competitive games, and we'll help these teams kind of win some games and kind of build some momentum in their programs. Because I mean, again, a lot of these teams were playing the Marin Catholics, the Ranchos, the San Marins, the Vintages, the Windsors, and getting their butts handed to them, and like that's just not good for again, for program building. So that's kind of the whole ethos of this is just to kind of create some more competition. And I'd say, I mean, again, just selfishly, I'm looking at that top league, just being like rubbing my hands, just like bring it on, man. Like, it's going to be awesome. I mean, we have three state champions in this, three state champions in this league, and Newman, Marin Catholic, and San Marin. I mean, again, Marin Catholic, is coming off a state title this year. San Marin won back-to-back the last couple years. I mean, Windsor is now, a regional powerhouse. Vintage is just, year in, year out, a legitimate program here in the North Bay. I mean, this is just going to be appointment viewing every year or every week, man. And I'm ecstatic about how this is going to play out next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan, you got anything to add from that first group?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I totally agree with Gus on that. And I know I touched earlier about about like a VVAL league, for example, where it's like it's kind of good sometimes to have a league where you have sometimes the lower division teams playing against the top because it brings the best out of them. But I mean, that being said, why I would still support the formation of the Adobe League the way we have it now is because you can still schedule those guys in the in the non-league games. You know what I'm saying? Like, let them get their tests in the first 3 weeks. And then the rest is just going to be, the real deal league games. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do we have to have an entire league, an entire 10, 11 week season where it's like we have all these different, ranked and different schools playing each other. Like, let the top dogs eat, for the majority of the league. And then, if the lower, division teams want to take their chance at a top, division school or something like that, hey, coaches can talk it up. They can figure out a schedule and work it out and schedule those games on their own. You know what I mean? Why do we have to have this league where guys are consistently getting blown out all the time? Like, and I think it's better for parity as well. Just like how we said, sometimes playing the top dogs brings the best out of you. So that being said, like, I'm so excited for this league because it's just going to be the top dogs bringing the best out of each other. Yeah. So it's like, man, we're going to see the best football in the area, man. I'm telling you, it's going to be a great, great league.
Well, it's especially coming off of last year. You see San Marin beat Marin Catholic for the first time in like over 2 decades, right? Yeah. You saw Windsor handle Newman pretty well. Rancho played both Windsor and Newman tough, despite being injured. So it's gonna be a blast.
Yeah. I will say, last thing on this too, though, is that like it is going to be crazy to see that one of these 6 teams is going to be like might have like 1 or 2 wins in league, which is crazy to think.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, like, there is going to be a last place team in this in the top league, and it's going to be a team that is not used to being there.
Yep. There's going to be a school there's going to be at least 1 or 2 teams that are like, whoa, this has never happened to us in a while, at least.
Yeah, man. And so a few other details about this too is that I know that a lot of the Napa schools were actually against this move kind of when the voting was going on, and a big part of that too was kind of travel issues and like having to just getting over from Napa can be a pain. So that's part of the reason why that League 2 is so similar to what the VVAL kind of still looks like, is that a lot of those kind of Napa and the VVAL schools still wanted to kind of stay together a bit. Although I will say I know that Petaluma still isn't a huge fan of the travel. They still have to kind of get over across Napa, and now they have to go down to Marin and stuff. So not the easiest thing for public schools to do, but again, this is how the VVAL has been the last 5 years. So they can make it work. But I know that Napa, again, this is going to be a big thing to keep an eye on, is that is seeing Napa, the Napa Vintage Big Game is no longer going to be a league game, which I think is going to be the first time correct me. I'm probably wrong on this, but I don't think that's ever been the case in the Napa Vintage, rivalry, situation. So they've always been in the same league. Crosstown rivals. Vintage, has obviously kind of, been the power, for the last decade or so. But so I I would assume that Napa and Vintage are going to schedule each other in the non-league, kind of like Oregon and Oregon State are now going to have to schedule each other
Right.
That's
for non-league too.
that's
So
crazy, man. Imagine selling that like a 1-0 Oregon team coming to Oregon State
I
second week.
know
That's
it's going to be
crazy.
bizarre. Like, how can you get up for a non-league like middle of September?
When it's gonna be 80 degrees at
It's gonna
Reeser.
be weird. I know.
It's
So
gonna
I'm
be
not. So
bad.
yeah, maybe we're gonna have a similar situation with with Napa and Vintage, but who knows? Maybe they can get like a late season non-league or like non-league game or something. I don't know, but that'll be something to watch. But also something to keep in mind too is that there will be some interconference realignment every 2 years. So the league is going to kind of reevaluate how things stand every 2 years, and then move teams up and down, how they see fit. So we could be seeing a Casa Grande or a Justin Siena or American Canyon or something like moving up to the top league, and maybe like a Vintage kind of keeps playing like 500 or something like that. They could fall,
Yeah.
or if Windsor, or if some team starts to like like it just seems more appropriate, for them to be in a lower league. The league commissioners will take that into account and make those changes and stuff. So
How
these
do
are
we
not
feel
set in
about that,
stone.
though?
What was
How
that?
do we feel? How do we feel about that? How do we feel about like
Well,
constant evaluation?
it's what the NBL's been doing for the
Yeah.
last since their inception. So I mean I'm not too surprised by it. To be completely honest with you, I mean that's why Santa Rosa moved up to the Oak
Yeah.
for the last couple of years. Maybe not the best decision, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not surprised by it. I think it's kind of the norm in these conferences with a lot of different divisions and leagues. But Gus, sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with the moving every 2 years, I mean, Kenan, you mentioned Santa Rosa, and this is, I know it's a bit of a weird thing because it's like what the league does is it takes into account your recent success in the last couple of years, but it doesn't take into account how you might be, which is kind of what happened to Santa Rosa. Because they I think had won the NBL Redwood, I think the last 2 years, something like that. So it's like, all right, hey, logically we should move them up into the higher division. Well, all the kids that were there that helped them win those championships all graduated, and then they had now they're fighting for numbers and they're playing teams that are they're just way overmatched right now in the NBL Oak. So I don't know how the league is going to kind of approach that. I don't think there really is a way to like kind of safeguard against that. You just it's hard to just kind of forecast and predict
Right.
how a team's going to be. So I mean, we'll see how that works out. But I mean, I do think there should be some way for teams to move to move up and down. I mean, we see St. Vincent, they're in the third league, and I do think that's probably a good place for them. I mean, playing teams of comparable skill. I mean, Ukai beat them this year. Montgomery, has beaten them 2 of the last 3 years. I think them playing N League, would be super fun to see. I know Santa Rosa. Actually, no. Did Santa Rosa give him? Santa Rosa, I think, played him tough the last couple of years when they were in the Redwood. So I don't know. I think that'll be kind of a good place to kind of see, how good St. Vincent, kind of is against, some of the schools like of equal competition. And if they beat those schools, great. Reward them and put them up into the higher division. So.
Right.
And I think that'd be awesome. I mean, seeing St. Vincent against some of the big dogs like AmCam and Casa and I mean Redwood Tam, like that would definitely be a massive step up in competition for them. But I think it'd be it'd be really fun to see. So, and I think that's what this whole league is all about. Is this is about creating some new games, some new matchups, some new excitement, and I think it will deliver. Just kind of looking at how things are based out right now. So yeah.
I will say going back real quick to Jordan's point about the big dogs playing the big dogs, and then your point about the possible moving up, the realignment thing. This might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I hear that Casa is playing Newman and Rancho their first 2 games of the season.
Oh.
This next season they have Newman at home, and then I think they go to Rancho. So that's a pretty good test of your metal right there. In terms of big dogs playing the big dogs. And really, really, really helping out your record in come playoff time.
For sure.
So, if they play good against Newman and good against Rancho, who knows?
Yeah.
Sorry, but anyways, so yeah, like we said, League Two, American Canyon, Casa Grande, Justin Siena, Petaluma, Redwood, and Tam join them. Obviously, Tam will probably beat Casa Grande opening round of the playoffs this year. Redwood's been a pretty solid mid-tier MCAL team for however many years. We kind of just touched on League Three. League 4, however, we kind of touched on them a little bit. But Gus, your Greyhounds might pick up a few victories in this league.
They
I
got a
don't know.
chance here, man. They got a chance here. There are some winnable games here, I'd say. But no, I mean, this is kind of like the whole point of this league. I mean, you see all of these teams down here, and I think maybe probably Piner, maybe San Rafael, so, Sonoma Valley. I think those are all teams that I think have had winning records. I think at some point in the last like 4 or 5 years, I want to say. But outside of that, I mean, Archie's one of the bottom tier teams in the MCAL. Same with Terra Linda, Healdsburg. Obviously, their struggles are well documented. So this is again a chance to play some teams of equal competition, to get some wins, to get some kids back into your program, to get some momentum. And then, yeah, I mean, again, most of these teams are all also, I mean, I think Piner's Division 4, maybe. I think all of these teams are relatively smaller in size. And I will actually say too, now that we're kind of talking about this as well, but we'll mention there is a new possible playoff format currently under consideration by the NCS. It would be a bit of a combination of the North Coast section and the Central Coast section models, taking some aspects of competitive equity into account, along with base divisions based on enrollment. So it's a bit too complicated, and it's kind of inside baseball to like really kind of break down on a podcast. So and obviously it also still hasn't even passed yet. So there will be, we'll write about that I think next month there's kind of the final NCS meeting to approve it, and then we'll kind of get all the details hashed out. But it will be an interesting kind of new wrinkle thrown into all this as well. About there being some new playoff divisions, and some teams maybe being placed in some different divisions that they haven't been in the last couple of years. So yeah, sorry, bringing it back to the Mountain League, though, I do think that this is kind of why this league was created, is to help these lower tier programs that are struggling. So who knows? My Greyhounds could pick up some wins here in the next couple of years. I do have some faith that that they will do that. It's been a while.
They've been putting up points, man. They put up points.
Putting up points. They've been more competitive the last couple of years, this year especially. They were much more competitive than they were in the last couple of years. So fingers crossed that my Greyhounds can pull out some dubs here.
Just like how we said, the big boy league there's gonna be some teams that like are losing and they haven't been used to it, or that's like a shock to them because I think you're going to see the same thing here with this league, but it's going to be the opposite. Like a lot of teams are winning. Like, whoa, our program is building momentum. What? Like
imagine Healdsburg goes undefeated. We'll never hear the end of it on this podcast.
You will not. You will not.
Healdsburg goes undefeated in the league.
I will be decked out head to toe in Healdsburg every podcast.
We're gonna have the whole team as a guest on the
pod. Exactly. I don't know if Microsoft Teams has enough room for all those guys, but all right, let's kind of take a move on here. Obviously, that was kind of the breakdown and quick look ahead, but we also wanted to do a way too early and emphasize too early top 5 for 2024. Obviously, some teams are losing some guys this year. There are no doubts about it. This year's senior class was very, very strong across the board. But yeah, we let's discuss this a little bit here. Let's we have it put down as our top 5 first. Cardinal Newman 1, Windsor 2, American Canyon number 3, Rancho Cotati number 4, and St. Vincent number 5. I feel like I kind of want to start at number 3, American Canyon, because they are so promising. It is crazy how promising they are. And Jordan, I know you're a fan. So it's now a case for American Canyon of bringing all those pieces together and really, really, really showing out. Because when they showed out last year, they were so entertaining and fun to watch. I think, although before we get started on that, I think this upcoming year we'll also be looking to add the Marin County teams and stuff like that, and do more of like a top 10, maybe still top 7. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's start it. I want to start at number 3, American Canyon. Gus, talk to me about American Canyon number 3.
Well, I mean, it just kind of seems like, just looking at the roster, kind of what they have coming back. I mean, they do have a couple big pieces. Graduating. I'm thinking of like Isaiah Vaughn is like a big name who's going to be gone next year. Oyani Castillo, their leading rusher, but the guys they got coming back, Mason Harris. I help me out with some names here. Abdul Cates, Cole
Yep.
Golar. I mean, they got some guys who are coming back. I mean,
I think it's Andre Lopez, the running back.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
three of
yes.
their top four receivers are
Yep.
coming back next year. Like four of their, three of their top four, right? Running backs are, rushers are coming back next year. Like they have some dudes coming back. And again, I think this was a team that under a new head coach, I think this year took some big strides, but I think still has a bit of a ways to go. But with a lot of these guys who are coming back, I think the sky is the limit for this team next year, and we'll see. I mean, I do think vintage will also definitely be a big fact. And again, I'm thinking in terms of VVAL and MBL and stuff here, but
Yeah.
but I do think vintage. I know that they graduated a lot, and they probably were not up to their standards this year, but you know, they're one of the more consistent programs at churning out talent. So I think that vintage could be in the top 5 this year. But I'm just looking at returning guys. I think American Canyon probably takes the cake over Rancho Cotati, who graduates a ton. I mean, I don't like looking at what they bring back. Like, I'm kind of like, all right, who are the guys going to be, next year? Because like that was a bit of a question this year. It was like, all right, it was Jacob Pruitt and Potu and Gio Ortiz, but then like, like who are the other guys who are going to step up? And there were a few others, but it was, for the most case, it was those 3 guys, and now those 3 guys are graduating. So I think there's a lot of questions, with Rancho this year, and I think that kind of leaves a bit of space there for American Canyon to slide in, just kind of with how much talent that they have coming back. And I do have faith that Rancho will, rebuild and retool, because they're same thing as Vintage, very consistent program. They always have guys in that, program who step up, but just looking on paper, what American Canyon has coming back. And again, this is way, 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 way too early for next year, but I am seeing American Canyon as being one of these teams on the rise next year for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look at these other teams that kind of disperse into these other leagues. I think part of the challenge, even though it's a great challenge, I'm sure these other coaches welcome, is that it's a new league, it's a new schedule, new teams that you're going to be consistently playing against. Whereas American Canyon, I mean, like how you guys mentioned earlier, it's kind of like just a diet V-Val. You know what I mean? You just swapped out a couple teams here and there, and it's like this program, they know the teams that they're going to be playing against. They've had they've been playing them for the past few years. They kind of have this sense of continuity, and on top of that, they had success obviously last year. So I think they're just going to be building on top of that. And another thing that I think, another reason why I think American Canyon is really going to stand out is yes, they're losing a lot of key pieces, but with the pieces that they are retaining, they're going to be playing the same style of football. I don't think there's going to be some type of, oh, okay, yeah, we're losing this, we're losing that. Like they're going to be the same style they're going to be playing is we're going to be playing explosive, run heavy football. And yeah, I think Mason Harris is going to be a candidate for offensive player of the year next year. In several different types of categories and rankings. I think this kid is special. Obviously, he showed the ability to make plays with his legs, but he can throw that thing too. He finished with 19 passing touchdowns. I mean, he's the real deal, and I think he's going to finally kind of, he's going to be a senior. He's going to be in that position where he's just going to feel the full command and full kind of confidence in himself to kind of take over. So, yeah, I have a lot of confidence in American Canyon, kind of really taking that next leap, that next jump forward, to kind of solidify themselves in the top echelon of the football in the area. So, yeah. Really encouraged by them.
Totally.
Well, and one thing I will say too is one name that might not be in here that I think probably would have a pretty good case to get in here if we're just kind of still looking at the Napa schools and the Sonoma schools and not the Marin schools right now. But I think Casa Grande probably also has a good case to be in the top 5 as well.
100%.
I mean, like we always talk about Casa every year in, year out, it seems like they graduate like 20 seniors, but then they always have like 20 seniors like the next year or something like that. So it's just like every year they just kind of churn through like their veteran players. But one of the great things about that though is that like those veteran players, all those juniors who are going to be seniors next year, they've all played. They all know the system. They all, they all know what Casa football is all about. So I think that there is, this was kind of, I feel like at the start of this last year, we kind of, did the same dance a bit where it was like Casa, I don't know. They graduated a lot, new quarterback. Yeah. What are they going to be? Always a lot of questions. And they, I mean, great, 9-2 overall, undefeated VVAL champs. I don't even think that we saw that, early in the season. So who knows? Casa could very, very well be, be one of these teams that, or a top 5 team at this point. But But yeah, I mean, I think St. Vincent also definitely earned some points too for, I mean, Mason Cutterelli coming back, Gabe Casanova's coming back. I mean, some of those, juniors coming back off of, coming off a state title run.
Robert Rooks
Huge
is coming
things.
back. CJ
Robert Rooks
Perez is coming back.
A lot of big
That's
names
really
coming back.
crazy about St. Vincent. I mean, like when you see like again, speaking to you guys' point earlier about how like a lot, when programs see the height of their potential in situations like this, it's oftentimes on the heels of some seniors who have been through it. You know what I mean? It's like this big graduating class of seniors, and then they win a championship and then they all graduate, and it's like, but it's like, no, they won a championship and they're all coming back.
And they're all coming back, right?
It's not like this team that just kind of reached their potential at the end. Like they kind of hit their potential like in the middle of their run. So it's like, man,
well, to be fair about St. Vincent, we thought about that. We kind of thought about that coming into this year, because their senior class like last year was just insane.
Loaded.
But now this year's senior class was, I mean, they won a state championship. But like just mentioning some of the others real quick. Sorry, I guess cut you off, but mentioning some of the others. Windsor, obviously, Judson Anderson is leaving their starting quarterback. Carter Voss is going to be Voss. He's going to be taking the reins. Hayden Anderson's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But Newman, it seems like as a turning class, I mean, they have one of the best young cores in the area. I think coming back. So I think they're number one for now.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of coaches kind of feel the same way, where it's like, yeah, I mean, like, Newman was obviously, very good this year, but everyone kind of looks at, they had a very, very good freshman class in. They had a lot of sophomores who got some reps this year, on varsity, tons of juniors who got a bunch of playing time this year on varsity. So I know a lot of coaches in the area are kind of looking at Newman like, yeah, Newman's going to be the team the next couple of years, and that just is kind of how it's going to be. So, I know, and again, just last thing on this too, but it will be really, really fun because I know the last 8 or 9 years, Newman and Marin Catholic have played in in the playoffs, and now they're gonna be squaring off in during league play. So that's just gonna be so much fun to watch. So, and then like Newman San Marin is gonna be awesome, and Rancho Marin Catholic is gonna be fun. I mean, again, there's gonna be so many fun matches in this league, so it's gonna be awesome. But all right. Well, anything else on our football stuff before we take a gander off into basketball stuff for the year? And I think this is it. Are we saying goodbye to football stuff here for the final time in 2023? I think we are.
I think we are. I think. I mean, what a season though, man. What a season. State champion. Lots of NCS champions. Oh, also, we got to give our flowers one more time before we say goodbye to football. Jordan and I did last week, but Rosen University Prep, man, RUP. RUP, baby.
Love RUP. Yeah, still my favorite story of the year. Just so much fun to follow.
They deserve a movie. They deserve a movie. Someone needs to make a movie.
Honestly, they do. They really do.
Anyways, let's head into basketball here. We're going to start off with our first basketball rankings of the year. We were going to do this last episode, but obviously Gus was out a little bit sick, so we decided to push those to this episode here. Although, Gus, did you publish these earlier or no?
No, we haven't run these yet. But
no, we have not run these. Okay, yeah,
so by the time people hear this, they'll probably be out. Yeah.
Yeah. First time hearing it. Okay, so let's start with the boys here. Got a top 7, just like football. Number 1, Montgomery. Number 2, Cardinal Newman. Number 3, Petaluma. Number 4, Justin Siena. Number 5, Ukiah. Number 6, American Canyon. And Pioneer has that 7th spot. On the bubble, you got Windsor, St. Vincent, Santa Rosa, Vintage, and Sonoma Academy. So let's start with the boys' rankings here. Montgomery, obviously, coming off that nail-biting win over Cardinal Newman last week. Cardinal Newman coming back, has that win over Petaluma at Rose City. They're looking like a very, very good young team. Petaluma, has bounced back after that Cardinal Newman loss and won the Callan Memorial Tournament by handling Casa Grande. Justin Siena, always a powerhouse. Ukiah looking like the favorite to win the NBL Redwood yet again. American Canyon, Jordan, I know you're a fan of them on the rise. And obviously Pioneer, one of our highly anticipated teams this year, sitting at 6-3 at 7. So just thoughts and rationale on the first boys basketball rankings of the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think these are gonna. I mean, again, these being the first rankings of the year, these will change week in, week out. Basketball, especially. I mean, football. I think there's a pretty clear-cut order, I think, at the top. Basketball, especially after our first ones, there's going to be a lot of movement in these, I think, especially kind of with, we're going to have the rest of the preseason tournaments kind of finishing up here. The rest of the month we have the SoCo Classic here in the next or weekend. Yeah, next weekend, not this coming one, but the one after, and then I know Windsor has a big tournament coming up too, and then league play really kind of gets up and rolling after the new year. So, yeah, Montgomery won. I don't think there's much debate there. I mean, after they beat Newman, I know that was a total nail biter, but they still pulled it out. But I'd say after that, they picked up probably the biggest win of any team in the area. They beat Redwood by 13 points, 64-51. This is at Montgomery last. I think this was Thursday or something but Redwood has like a 10-point Redwood has beaten, I think, St. Ignatius and San Ramon Valley this year. And San Ramon Valley, I think, is considered, one of the best teams in the NCS. St. Ignatius is considered, one of the best teams in the CCS. So for Montgomery to beat them even at home by 13 points, it just shows kind of, how good, Montgomery can be. And I know that, the Newman game, they were missing Graff. I think they were also missing Graff, for the Redwood game. But I mean, Caden DeVries had like 25 points. He had like 12 points in the first quarter. Hit like 4 threes. I mean, the dude is just playing on another, different level right now. And they also had a sophomore step up too in Savon Ang. I think he had like 4 threes, like 14 points. So once they kind of get their like bench depth a little heightened, they're going to be super scary. But I will say, that being said, Newman, who plays 4 freshmen consistently, nearly upset them, at Montgomery too. So
yeah, that was crazy.
And I will say too, so I was able to see, Newman play all last weekend at the Callan. Again, super young team. AJ Cole is a stud. Legend Hale is a great player. Diego Gonzalez Flores is going to be, really talented this year. And, Madi Kamara, their football stud, he's coming back off of injury. He was great for them last year. He was a huge spark for them, this weekend in the Callan. They did take a pretty tough loss against Urban. Some of that youth kind of, showed itself. But, yeah, I mean, Newman, especially once they get Tatum Krapinski, their Cloverdale transfer eligible. He'll be eligible to play actually tomorrow on Wednesday. He'll be eligible the rest of the season. They're going to be really, really, really good. So that rematch, I think it's going to be January 17th. Montgomery Newman is going to be super fun at Newman. So that'll be a total battle. So, and then Petaluma has that head-to-head loss, like you mentioned, to Cardinal Newman, but they've rebounded, great. They look really, like Andy By, Elliott Blue, Kieran Mannion. I know he's dealing with, with a bit of a hand injury. He looks great. Rowan Calhoun looks really good too. So they have, 4 studs. Also Branch Giacomini too, if you want to throw him in there as well,
Yeah.
So they have a senior heavy, guys who know how to win, talented players. But yeah, I think them and Justin, they had some fun battles last year in the VVAL, and I think that should repeat itself again. But Jordan, I know you've seen Justin play once or twice this year already. So, but I think they have the fewest games played out of anybody so far in our top 7. So, but they have a good win. I believe they beat Sacred Heart Cathedral, which is a good, which is a really solid win. But they just haven't played a ton of games yet, so it's kind of hard to get a huge gauge on them. But you've been impressed so far with what you've seen, right? At this point, Jordan.
Yeah. I've been very impressed. I think this week is going to be huge for them. Again, we're recording this Tuesday, December 19th. They have an upcoming, tournament at home, just the Justin Sienna tournament, the boys and girls. So, I mean, it's going to be, I think this week is going to be a real good test for them. Like, to consistently play, a big slate of games. They're going to be, if they advance to the title game, they're going to be playing at least 4 more games. So it's this is, I think, the makeup portion of the schedule where they can really find out kind of who they are and how they stack against everybody. But in terms of the way they're playing, I think they just like how they won league last year for a reason. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of continuity. That coach, that whole coaching staff knows what they're doing over there. It's a really good program. So yeah, they're really good. But yeah, like, it's just they haven't played that many games. And when you haven't played that many games, it's kind of hard to really assess, like, where you kind of stack. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, well, and they have beat one team like kind of in this whole pile here, but I think they beat Windsor by like 20 or something like that too. But I think I don't think Windsor had their football guys yet at that point in the year. So
they didn't.
Yeah.
And that was a decently, and that's a good coach Windsor team, but they didn't have all their dudes. But
for sure,
this is where you kind of get into the question and the thinking of, like, when we put together these rankings, like, okay, Justin versus an American Canyon, Justin, versus a Montgomery. Like in terms of the schedule, like these other schools have just played way more games and have way more of a body of work to kind of evaluate. You know what I mean? So it's just like we're not throwing no shade at Justin, but it's just like you played 6 games.
Yeah.
5 games. So it's just like what, and then all these other teams are almost double that now. 10 or 11 games already. So that is kind of what it comes down to. I gotta say though, real quick, side note. I gotta show some love to Vintage, man. I appreciate they're on the honorable mention. Vintage is pretty good.
Yeah.
I saw them last weekend. They played against Northgate. I don't think I think they lost by like 11 or 12.
Northgate's pretty good. Northgate's pretty good.
Yeah. So you see Northgate as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that the last couple of years they've been a pretty decent like contender. I think they're in D2. So
yes,
they're a pretty consistent program. But I was following your coverage of that game, and I was like, man, all right, good for Vintage. Like they're hanging pretty tough with this team. Like it was close throughout the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Northgate is good. I don't think that score really reflects how close that game was. It was down to 4 points, I think, within like maybe under 3 minutes in the fourth quarter. Miles McPherson, that kid is a stud, man. That kid is a stud. And what I really like about them is they play together, but they obviously let their best player cook and let him do him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you have that kind of understanding and awareness as a group, I mean, the sky's the limit, because that's the hardest thing, is just identifying what role is your role, what are you trying to do, what are you trying to achieve. They kind of seem like they're already on the same page. So I think they're a heavy sleeper in the V-Val and a heavy sleeper in the area for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and then just kind of finishing out the rest of our ranks here, but Ukiah is off to a great start. They only have a couple losses against some pretty good teams. That they lost to Newman at Newman, I think by 2 points, and I think they had the lead and just kind of coughed it away. And then they lost to a pretty good Tamalpais team as well in Healdsburg's rebit tournament. So Ukiah, looking really strong. They have a number of very, very good players. I think Omari Phillips Porter is averaging close to like 20 points a game, I think, to open this year. Yeah, 17 points a game for him. So definitely got to watch over in the Redwood. And then American Canyon too. Who I think we've talked about a bit. I mean, they outside of I think they lost to Montgomery. I think like by 11 or 12 or something like that. But I mean, again, Montgomery's legit. And then, looking at the rest of the calendar. So they've lost a couple of games here. I mean, they lost to San Ramon Valley, who we talked about a bit earlier, but San Ramon Valley is just legit this year. So, and then they lost to Benicia as well last week. So a couple losses for American Canyon. But that being said, they're still averaging close to 70 points a game. They're putting points in a hurry at this point. So, I mean, again, I still think that they're going to be a team that is going to be in the conversation come V-Val. And then I guess this is, Piner over Windsor here for the 7th spot. 7th spot was a bit of a toss-up, but, Windsor did beat Piner, in the NBL opener, I think last week or something like that. So, hey, how's Piner over Windsor? Well, at this point, I mean, again, basketball is such a different animal when comparing head-to-head losses versus overall resumes. So just kind of looking at the overall resumes of Piner and Windsor. Piner just kind of has played or just has a better overall resume right now at this point. Better overall record, some pretty good teams. I know Windsor has played some really, some pretty tough competition to open the year. The Piedmont tournament is always really tough. They played some good teams over there. And again, they're also getting their football guys kind of more integrated here. So I would expect Windsor to be better, here in the next coming weeks and throughout the rest of the season for sure. But yeah, for now, first rankings, Piner gets the early nod over them for the 7th spot. So, and then shout out St. Vincent, 11-0 to start the year. One of the best teams in D5 in the NCS. They picked up a big divisional win last week. Santa Rosa, looking pretty good to start. They have some good pieces. Elijah Hansen back, and then Sonoma Academy. Kind of one of these sneaky small school teams that could be a fun school to watch in NCS D5. I think they beat Cloverdale by like 15 or 16. I want to say early, a couple weeks ago. So definitely a big win for SA. I think that about wraps it for our boys rankings here. But anything else on these before we go into girls here, boys?
I don't think so. I think we could just go right into girls. Obviously, Carl Newman, clear cut number 1 there. Justin Sienna, who's been on fire as of late. They get the 2 spot. Montgomery, a little bit of a debate here who to put at 3, Montgomery or Maria Carrillo. But Montgomery, their star-studded trio has just been on fire to start the season. I know Maria Carrillo's had a bit of a harder schedule. To start, American Canyon, Jordan, I know you've watched them a couple times. They look very good. Healdsburg, Gus, your Greyhounds. As long as Haley Webb is playing, they have a great chance in pretty much any game. And Casa Grande rounds out the top 7. On the bubble there, you got Sonoma Valley, Annalee, and Cloverdale. Cloverdale had a great year last year, and seems like that they're just adding on to that this year so far with a 9-2 start. But those are the top 7. Seems like Cardinal Newman, despite only playing 8 games, is still the clear-cut favorite here in Sonoma County in the North Bay, and it's probably not going to change, or around our coverage area rather. Justin Siena, though, Jordan, like I said, you've watched them a couple times. They are looking pretty darn good, aren't they?
100%. And it's hey, look, man, Jordan Washington and Lauren Keller. I mean, just studs. I mean, they score in a bunch of different ways. Very creative, very crafty. And I mean, I'm looking at the scores right now. They've only scored less than 58 points, or sorry, less than 60 points twice. Or sorry, 3 times. So majority of the time they're scoring 60 points or more. And
Wow.
I think that's a really good indication that like they're aggressively looking to score. They're not trying to like let their defense play through that. Nah, let's just get to the basket and let's just outscore you, and you got to keep up with us. That's a really foot on the gas type of style of basketball that I think is going to translate, as we kind of head into league play early next month. So yeah, they're a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Yeah.
That's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, this being our first rankings of the year, these will change, a ton throughout the year. But I also don't think that Newman's going to be moving out of that one spot. I mean, again, Newman is just a different caliber than everybody else right here. But I will say the girls' rankings were pretty hard to put together this year, or at least this first one was. I mean, yeah, the Montgomery Korea, we felt like those teams were 2, very even teams. Casa Grande, I thought also might be, higher up there, but they lost to I think Montgomery beat them by 12, I want to say, to end last week. So that was a big win for Monty. But yeah, I mean, Casa, I think was an NCSD2 semifinalist last year, returned a couple of players. But yeah, I mean, it's, again, first rankings of the year, they're not perfect. I think we were even mentioning, before we came on air, but Annalee. I mean, Annalee's beaten American Canyon. I think Annalee even beats Sonoma Valley too. Like so like there are like I think there's quite a bit of parity. As far as it comes to the, I guess, teams that aren't Cardinal Newman and maybe aren't Justin Siena too. I know Justin Siena beat a very good Arcata team to win. I think that was to win Rebit a couple weeks ago. And I know Arcata is like one of the top teams in the NCS. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty clear cut. Newman 1, Justin 2, and then I mean, Monty Carrillo could kind of switch up there. American Canyon could be in the mix too. I mean, Healdsburg, it'll be interesting to kind of see once they start playing some harder competition to how they kind of fare. But I do think Casa will also be be in the mix there, I think, too, for the VFL, along with I think Sonoma Valley was kind of one of these fun teams that I'd say kind of came out of nowhere last year, in the VFL. And I know that they graduated some pieces, but yeah, I mean, they have some pretty good early season wins as well. So who knows? Again, this is our best shot. We haven't really seen any of these teams really play yet. We're just kind of going off of resumes and rankings and stuff. So yeah, inexact science, but this is kind of where how we think teams going to stack up about a month into the year. So
totally very fluid. These are
very fluid for sure.
Very, very fluid. But yeah, I mean, those are our first basketball rankings. I guess some early season takeaways, if you guys have any. I mean, Jordan, I know you just came on here, so you weren't here last year, but Gus, I mean, in terms of the quality of teams this year that we've seen so far from last year, well, just kind of what are your thoughts on the talent pool as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to camp out at the Calino last week. So I saw, 3 games from Windsor, 3 games from Casa, 3 games from Newman, 3 games from Petaluma. So I was able to get some pretty good kind of reads on what those teams are at this point of the year. I mean, again, we've talked about Newman at length, all their young players. Tatum's coming back here, this week. Not a very big team, a very young team, but they play hard. They play good defense. They're going to make some mistakes because they are so young. But yeah, I mean, for anyone who thought that they were going to take a step back this year with how much they graduated last year, I think hold on to those takes because now I think this Newman team is legit, and I think they're just going to get better as the year goes on. Montgomery, though, I still think is clear cut number one just from what I've seen of them. I mean, Caden DeReese, I think, is the best player in the county. I mean, they play great defense. I mean, this is again a program that year in year out produces winners. Big guy Michael Yule, 6'8". You can't teach height. You can't teach 6'8". The guy's also is just getting better and more like he's also a genius from what I've heard too. He's like a 5.0 student. His dad is like an engineer. The guy just like soaks up knowledge like that.
Has all the tools.
Exactly. So he'll learn, he'll get better for sure. And then I'm trying to think, yeah, Windsor too. I was pretty impressed with the few games that I saw from Windsor. I think that again their continuity is still working itself out. With some of their football guys, who are coming back and getting some playing time. But Colin Kraft, really good guard, can shoot, good kind of team leader. Josh Geis, kind of stretch four guy, can hit some threes, can bang down low. I was impressed with, I think it was Josh or something Joe Seha came in off the bench and had like 10 or 12 points in the second half in like one of their wins. So they have a couple, role players too. They shoot a lot of threes. Most of the teams around here shoot a lot of threes. I mean, it's just the game these days. But yeah, I think Windsor will get better as they play more together. Casa Grande too, I thought had the biggest win of the weekend. They beat Urban, who was they were the NCS Division 5 champs last year, and this year they're one of the top teams in D4. But Urban beat Newman in the first game, and you're thinking, all right, Urban is going to smoke Casa in the second game, and then Casa had played their butts off at like 11 threes. Ryan Rice had like 23 points, and then even then, Urban made a run late and Casa was able to hold them off. Luke Bell hit a three, to put him up by 3 with like 30 seconds left. Like huge game for Casa. So biggest win of the year or biggest win of the weekend by far was from Casa. Very impressed. Kind of with that. Although I will say I do think that might have been a bit of an outlier performance. I mean, even people I was talking to, like around the Casa program, were like, I've never seen them play like that before. So they just stepped up to the plate, but they have that potential in them though, obviously. So young team, I think they'll also kind of make some mistakes. But Ryan Rice, great player. Jeffrey Rice, great player. And then Harris can come in and get some buckets. They had a couple big guys who were pretty good. Yeah, but then again, they in the championship game they kind of just ran into a buzzsaw in Petaluma. So Petaluma, we've talked about them kind of at length, I think, at times this year, but they bring back 3 all-league guys. I mean, Andy Bai was named the tournament MVP. I think he scored like something like 60 points over the weekend, had like 11 or 12 threes. Like guy can fill it up. He's awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean you saw him play or actually no, you weren't there in the Rose City game, but you have seen him play, so guy can fill it up. Anyway, so out of those 4 teams, I think we pretty impressed, with how all of them did this weekend. I mean, it was pretty fun to be there on Friday and to have or no, I'm sorry, what was that? That was on Saturday, the final day, and to have all 4 teams like playing against each other. I mean, it was like yes, everyone lost at a certain point over the weekend, but I think every local team won on Friday, and then we had some Newman Windsor on for the consolation on Saturday, and then we had Petaluma Casa for the championship on also on Saturday. So it was just kind of fun to see some of those early season matchups. But yeah, I mean. I think we like Keenan, we were pretty spoiled last year with how good boys basketball was with the Newman and Newman Windsor being so good and Justin having like one of their best teams ever. So we were definitely spoiled, and I do think we were kind of looking at this year being like, man, I don't think it's going to be able to like live up to that. But I still think there's a ton of great teams and we're going to have a really fun boys basketball season this year for sure. Yeah,
totally awesome. Jordan, you have anything to add from your end about like just some quick takeaways before we wrap this thing up?
I think I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for this Justin tournament this week, man. It's going to be a good opportunity for, I think, Justin Siena as a program, but also just a lot of other schools in the area and that are going to be included in the tournament. I'm just really excited because I think, to our point earlier, I mean, this is our rankings are the way too early rankings. Like,
Yeah.
this stuff is going to change. It's going to evolve. It's going to, and there's all kinds of reasons why teams are in the positions they are in now. So I think finally this is going to be a really good, healthy slate of games in a point in the year where I think a lot of teams are finding momentum. So that's something I'm excited to go kind of cover this week. And also just kind of keeping an eye on other tournaments kind of going on. I think tournaments are really, really good for the sport, for the game of high school basketball. Just, these kids just need reps, man. They need opportunities to really kind of test themselves. So that's kind of my takeaway right now at this point in the season, just because we all understand, like, it's really, really early. But we also understand we're approaching that point where it's like, okay, we're at the 10 game mark. Pretty soon we're gonna be at the 15 game mark, 20, and it's slowly but surely approaching. So it's just I'm excited for the opportunity to kind of catch these teams as they kind of find their momentum in these tournaments and these different events that give them the opportunity to show us what they're made of.
I mean, it's like, that's a good point. I mean, 2 weeks from now we'll be at the midway point of the season. So
that's what I'm saying. It's nuts. It's nuts.
That's so
man.
crazy to believe.
It's crazy, but I think that's my biggest takeaway, because you get a mixed bag, depending on what games you go to sometimes, or what team you kind of see. For some of these teams, like Montgomery, for example, I mean, I would call them a clear-cut number one as well, but they've only gone on the road, like 2 or 3 times. They start going on the road for more games, we'll really see what they're made of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I expect them to still be really good, obviously, but it's just like those little nuggets of factors can kind of play and make a difference into the beginning part of the season. So just stuff to kind of keep an eye out for.
Yeah, they're playing, actually. I mean, that's a good point. But Monty is playing at Tamalpais on, I think, this Friday, and then they're going to be in the Bombauer Classic, which is Marin Catholic's tournament, the week after that. So it's definitely some good competition. Some good competition coming up for sure. So, all right, boys. I think that about wraps it up for us this week. Again, football done with, all finished, and it's on to hoop season. So, Yep. So more stuff. I mean, lots more hoops content coming out later this week. And obviously, all throughout this, this slower period here in December, and then we'll be busting out our all Empire teams here in the next couple weeks as well for all the fall sports. So football, volleyball, all the good stuff coming out. So, yeah. Anything else you guys want to, chime in with here before we close out, or I think that about does it?
No, I don't think so. We're also going to be coming out with like soccer previews, wrestling previews here in the next week or so, as well, because those seasons are ramping up as well.
Yep.
But other than that, appreciate you guys for listening, watching, however you consume this content, and you know what? We will see you guys next week.
I was definitely catch you on the next one.